We sound good?
Hello. Yep. Great.
Hello?
Hello. Hello. Okay.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Broadcasting live from the Loading Ready Run orbiting underground moon base, it's the LRRcast. '20th anniversary edition continues with this episode 6,
Yay.
I think.
Just looked that up.
Hello.
Hey, everybody.
I'm Graham.
I'm Paul.
And today we're talking, broadly speaking, about the years 2012-2013. To parrot ourselves from every prior episode, kind of important years.
I mean,
As it turns out.
For one thing, the world didn't end in 2012.
Yeah, we got a lot of, we made a lot of hay out of that, actually. We got a lot of jokes about, like the Mayan calendar. We did like at least one sketch.
About the Mayan calendar?
Yeah. Was it like referenced it. There was like the moon, we did like an Action 9 thing about the moon.
In his new book, Unlocking the Itzamna Code, How Ancient Mayan Astronomy Foretells Armageddon, he claims that the world will meet its end on December 21st, 2012. He's with me in the studio now to discuss why all human endeavor is ultimately futile. Thank you for being here, Neville.
Thanks, Mark.
I think the Daylight Savings episode might have referenced it as well. There was one or two sketches around this time that like referenced, just in passing, was sort of like, I guess the world didn't end in 2012 or whatever.
It's a well-known fact that the Mayans kept an exceptionally accurate calendar, but it ends suddenly in 2012. Why? Did some Mayan astrochronophilologist look up from his notes one day and say, well, I've calculated out all the dates and holidays for the next several thousand years. Screw it, I'm going for a curry. Or was it something more sinister? Did he foresee a catastrophe from beyond the stars?
Based on the synopsis of your book, I'm putting my money on the curry.
It's a good thing to make fun of.
Yeah.
Because it's silly.
Yeah.
And if it's not silly, like if it turns out to be true, there's nobody going to be around to call you on it.
No one's going to know. Yeah. A few things happened in this sort of span of time that would end up having, positive ramifications for us, I would say. There was an instance where on Twitter one day, Mike Krahulik from Penny Arcade was brainstorming, just sort of blue sky, sort of thinking and pitching about this notion of an America's Next Top Model, but for webcomic artists.
Right.
Right. And basically he said, is this a thing anybody would watch? And I just responded, just figured, throw this out there. I was like, watch it. Heck, I'd love to produce it. That was it.
And if you recall from the previous episode,
Yeah.
at this point we were doing Checkpoint for PATV. So we were, we were already fairly familiar with the Penny Arcade guys.
Yeah. I don't actually know. There was such a gap in time that I might have sent that initial tweet before we started doing PATV.
Oh, really?
I don't know, because it was a while later before I got this email from Robert Koo.
Okay, so it wasn't 2012 where this was happening. This was earlier, yeah.
I don't remember. I just know that it was a big span to the point that I'd kind of forgotten about it. And I get this email from Robert Koo who was like, hey, you said you wanted to produce this. And I was like, blah, blah, blah. And indeed, they wanted to do this thing, this sort of like reality TV show for the internet on, finding the next great web cartoonist was the idea. And they were going to call it Strip Search, which is a very funny name and awkward to explain.
I think that was a Jerry special.
I think so, yeah.
Naming things is kind of his area of expertise.
Yeah, exactly. And, they said, so, do you think this is something you could do? And I said, yes, I do think it's something we could do. And I think we provably did, but obviously we'd never done anything like it before.
Yeah.
But you got to start somewhere. And so we bought new cameras.
Well, we did a whole, at least one, meeting with the whole sort of PA team in Seattle.
Yeah.
Sort of planning it out.
Yeah, it was you and myself and Kathleen, and I can't remember if James, you were there. Yeah. Okay, and James, and then with Robert and Josh and Mike and Jerry.
And sort of figuring out, yeah, like sort of what a feasible scope of the whole thing would be.
Yeah. And we were more involved with that kind of with the creative process on that end than I had actually expected. And I think than most people probably assume, which is fair, in terms of thinking up the ideas for certainly the structure of the episodes, but also for the actual events. Like some of those were our ideas. They had a lot of stuff already planned,
right?
But how they wanted it to go, but sort of working out the nitty gritty of how each episode went and how the final cartoon showdown thing worked. We were very involved in all of that, and I don't know how I ended up also hosting. I think they had ideas for other people for names, and then eventually it was just sort of like, well, you know what, Graham can do it.
Wow, I was your first choice? Wow.
No. So then, went down a little ahead of time and did a bunch of pre-production in working out of the PA office for like a week and a half before we started. And then everyone else came down after that. And
we actually went down for the charity dinner.
Right.
And then just stayed.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, the Child's Play charity dinner lined up so you can get a sense of the time of the year that we shot it. It was mid-December.
Mid-December, yeah. It was chilly.
It was very, very cold.
And so the whole crew for that, it was myself and Paul. Paul was running camera. Kathleen was assistant director. I was hosting and directing. And then we had Jason, who would return to shoot Road Quest.
Hi there, and welcome to Just Chattin'. Today on the program, I'm joined by Jason Chinnock.
It's all fucked.
And later in the program, we'll be discussing the finer points of wine pairings. Why not the chicken and the fish?
As, I guess, a camera, I suppose. Sarah Mendiola, who had... Jason and Sarah had both independently done, like, loading time at PAX stuff. They were sort of like, like amateur videographers. I think Jason had gotten... they'd both done contract work. Like, they'd both done, like, freelance things, like weddings and corporate stuff and whatever. And they both had previously gotten a hold of me years prior and been like, hey, I'm going to be at PAX and I have a camera. Can I film some stuff? And I was sort of like, great, yeah, please film behind the scenes and then we'll take the footage and make a loading time out of it. And that worked really well. So that was like the extent of the involvement we had with them. And then a friend of ours from in town, Theo, because we needed someone dedicated to do sound because the sound was hell because everyone had a lav mic and it was a whole thing. And then we rented PA rented this house for a week. So here's the thing. You have to understand, they were fans of reality TV, but the kind of like really like trashy, mean-spirited reality television. And they were sort of like, yeah, that's what we want to make. We want to, like almost in the way of doing it like a parody, right? They were sort of like, they wanted to do that kind of a thing. And they recorded the sort of like there was the message from the creators or whatever at the beginning where they're acting all like all serious and whatever.
Let's go now to a message from the creators.
Artists, welcome to the house.
I hope you don't mind, but we've taken the liberty of filling it with many devious traps. All of them invisible. Many traps, right?
Single trap. One
What do you mean one? What do you mean one trap?
One trap total. There is a trap.
How do we not have more traps?
Devious trap. Single trap. Good trap.
We have filled the house with one incredibly devious trap.
But when it came time to like actually be mean to these people's faces,
took literally one episode
before
they realized that they couldn't do it.
Yeah.
They weren't cut out to do that sort of, whatever Simon Cowell, Gordon Ramsay sort of yelling at people.
Yeah.
and crushing their dreams.
Yeah, and actually, because I was running through the crew, I should mention also Van, who did the sort of the PA the series for a while, and Will, who was sort of acting as a production assistant and had worked on like actual like MasterChef or whatever, actual reality shows, and then Levin and Gavin from Penny Arcade and Josh from Penny Arcade and Robert. Like this was like an all hands kind of thing. Like
Yeah,
everybody
I think
was
almost
involved in this.
everybody from Penny Arcade sort of was involved at one point or another.
Yeah, either like guest hosting for an episode as like the person running one of the events, or was behind the scenes all the time. It was a massive lakefront house. There was a basement suite for like, I don't know, a basement suite where basically we lived, where the crew stayed. There was this grand main floor, and then this upper floor with all the bedrooms with like bunk beds that we'd assembled and put in, and you know, some people
We made them assemble, didn't we?
I think so. I can't remember. That wasn't one of the challenges, was it? No.
Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah, that was like the first thing they had to do.
I don't remember that.
Or at least that was the plan. I think that's how we did it. Maybe we ended up not doing that.
I think we just put them together ourselves. I think we were like, that's too mean. But this was really funny because we were like so insistent on that everything had to be secret until like the moment of reveal of everyone coming through the door, that like we were sort of, you know, it's like timing things when people would arrive from the airport, and like different people picking different people up and delivering them to the hotel for the pre-interviews, and then the next day we put the blindfolds on everybody and took them to the house, like in the same car. We were just like, don't talk, don't move, don't breathe, don't interact with everybody, all will be revealed. And then they had to wait there for so long while we mic'd everybody up, and it was a very, very silly thing. But yeah, and then, you know, it all ended up sort of, you know, like turning out very well. Like you said, you know, like the very, very first night, they felt so bad having to send someone home, because that's how it works, right? This was, you know, Mike and Jerry had to actually come to terms with the fact that they have to decide to send one of these human beings home.
Yeah,
and
they hadn't really prepared themselves for that aspect of it.
No, and so we're filming with Alex, who was the first one eliminated. We're filming with him in the back of the SUV, sort of doing like a, you know, like, hey, how do you feel about this? And Mike and Jerry were walking past, heading to their own cars, and they were like, oh man, hey, hang on. And then they just jumped in the back of the SUV. And it was just such a beautiful moment. We were like, you got to do that every night. You got to talk to these people. And it was so nice. And then because of that, this became like this really like, you know, the refrain from people was sort of like, it was a reality show, but nice. You know, it was a reality show that didn't feel crappy. And it was a wonderful thing to be partially responsible for.
And it was fascinating, like, you know, when you're setting things up like that, you know, obviously in most reality shows on TV, there's a lot of artificial drama that gets created.
Yeah.
And what I found fascinating is, you know, we were, like I said, we were doing quite a sort of nice support. You know, we weren't really like the people in the house weren't really like competing against each other. There wasn't like voting off or anything. And yet, you know, when you take a bunch of people and you're basically putting them in this like pressure cooker.
Yeah.
You know, it's a high stress environment, even if they aren't, you know, having to like scheme against each other. It's still a high stress environment, and you know, they're not getting very much sleep, and they're doing all these things, and it's amazing that you know, the sort of the drama kind of gets created by itself.
Yeah.
You know, stuff happens that, you know, makes things more difficult or gives people strong emotions and stuff. And so it works out really well. We've filmed the whole thing over 10 days, I think.
Yeah, which was a lot. And then the finale was filmed much later.
Right, and then the finale was filmed.
But the editing of the main show was...
Right, because I mean, it's the thing, right? It's like, you know, you film it all and then, you know, everybody goes home. But the editing...
That's when
it
I
still
started.
has to be done.
That's
Yeah.
when I started getting really into watching GSL StarCraft coverage from Korea because the time zones worked out well. That like when I was staying up until 3 and 4 editing, that it was like right in the middle of like Code S, like really like high level StarCraft play. So that's when I started getting really into that. Because it was a lot. We'd never undertaken an editing project like this before. There was so much footage and it was so massive, and it wasn't just our own thing, right? So we'd finish it. We'd finish an episode and send it off to primarily to Josh, was sort of the last line of defense on PA's end, and then we get a bunch of notes back. Fairly, and they were correct, and we'd make a bunch of changes, but it was sort of like, all right, I feel like this episode's done, and then we'd get back, like, you need to make all these changes, and we're like, yep, no, you're right, okay, and it's sort of like, okay, yeah, we gotta get this done, and it was like, it felt like every single episode was just sort of like delivering at like 4 a.m. the night before it's supposed to air at 10 a.m. or something. It wasn't the editing pipeline was not spectacular, and I admit that. But we did have one great save, which was there was one episode where I think we talked about this on the Blu-ray commentary. You can't buy it anymore, so I'll just tell you this now. Where there was an episode where they're doing media training, and the idea is that we have an interviewer who's going to ask them a bunch of unfair questions and just be really rude about it, and they have to sort of think on their feet. And we didn't realize until, weeks later that we were missing one camera angle from that half of the day. Sort of the way it worked out is we did like a morning event, and then we broke for lunch and backed up all the footage, and then we did an afternoon event and broke for dinner and backed up all the footage, and then shot the elimination. These were full days. Yeah. And so the afternoon for one camera, we just didn't have the footage. Now, mercifully, for the interview segment, all we were missing was the shot of the interviewer. We had a wide shot with both participants that we just sort of thrown in there at the last minute for safety coverage, thank God. And we had the one of the competitors. So we were okay there. But later, we had this sort of the breakdown of explaining her thoughts of the interviewer. It was me and the interviewer standing there, and the interviewer saying how she thought everybody did. And so we had the reaction shots of the contestants, but the shot of me and the interviewer, we didn't have. It was just gone. And Robert Koo was an imposing person, and I was crapping myself that we've ruined the show, right? We've lost a whole afternoon's worth of content. The whole second part of this episode is gone. So, we contacted him and we were like, here's the situation, but we think we can fix it with green screen. And he basically was like, I don't believe you, but show me what you got.
Right.
And what we did was we had a blank plate of the background where I would have been standing, and we used the same camera and handheld footage filming me talking and motion tracked the background in there. And by Christ, you couldn't tell. And sent it back to him, and he was like, holy crap, this is amazing. Great work. And so basically what ended up having to happen, because we couldn't get this reporter back, she lives in New York, we couldn't fly her out, certainly not on the timeline we had. So instead of me being like, and now AJ will talk to you, and her explaining everything, it was just me being like, so contestant A, what AJ said was blah, 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 and I just sort of parrot everything that she'd said so that the reactions from the contestants are still the same, but we just pretended like she wasn't there. Even though in reality she was there, and the contestants were talking to her, reacting to what she was saying. And I'm really proud of that, because
magic.
Yeah, it should not have worked. And boy, we've been really careful about footage ever since then. We'll talk about RoadQuest when we get to RoadQuest, but when we were on the road for that, we were making a secondary backup of all the footage as we were going. Like generally when we were driving around, I'm in the front seat of the production car, and I've got 2 hard drives plugged into the computer, and the thing with
Strip Search, we were doing that as well.
Yeah, I don't know. So I still don't know what happened. I think
so.
Just
It must
we
have
missed that card.
it must have never been ingested.
I guess.
Yeah.
Just captured that card, put it in the wrong pile. I
Because yeah,
guess.
we actually we would capture the footage, and then we actually had 2 copies of it that we like separated, and like we took a copy back to Victoria, and PA had a copy of the footage too. You know, we
Yeah.
wanted to make sure that we had like redundancy.
Literally, even now, they have a copy of all the raw footage and the edited footage at Penny Arcade. We have a copy here at the Moonbase in our cold storage. I personally have a copy at home that I can't bring myself to throw it away. And I'm fairly confident that Jason has a copy of all the raw footage, just because that's the sort of person Jason is. He's like, I'm gonna make myself a copy too. And yeah, we just never found that footage. So
And of course, Jason and Sarah have done a lot of work for Desert Bus.
yep.
Later on. Jason has also helped us out on other things. He shot a whole episode of Friday Nights
Yeah,
for us.
piloting the rig.
Gimbal, and like Graham said, he was DP on Road Quest.
He also helped me out with a thing we did called Tabletop Deathmatch, because having now done Strip Search and having proved that we can do this kind of internet reality show thing, I got called in we'll say a mild panic one year from our friend Liz, damn it Liz, also on Desert Bus, that Cards Against Humanity was doing this contest at Gen Con for unpublished game designers, where the deal was that they would give the person $10,000 worth. They give the winner $10,000 worth of value towards self-publishing their game and not keep any of the rights or anything. The idea was that they just wanted to jumpstart a yet unpublished designer.
Right.
It was great. I think 2 weeks before Gen Con, they were like, man, we should film this. And Liz was like, oh, I'll call Loading Ready Run. So me and Jason went to Indianapolis and just sort of managed to cobble together a pretty entertaining season of this like competition. It was very, very loose. It was a bunch of people from Cards and a bunch of guests from within the industry just sort of rammed into a hotel room, and we brought the people in and they pitched their games, and it was very, very, it really came together in the edit, shall we say. But it was successful enough that that they were like, hey, let's see what we can do with a little bit more sort of lead time. And so the next year we did Tabletop Deathmatch Series 2, which was a lot more involved, to the point that Kathleen and Jason and I only remember her last name because we nicknamed her Stabby, Emma, as running sound. They went on like a month-long road trip.
Or Sky Trip.
Well, they did like sections. They did like they flew from here to here and then drove between these 3 places and then flew from here to there.
Because the idea is they wanted to get some of the preparation stuff.
Yeah.
Before they went to Gen Con into the thing.
Yeah, so they interviewed all the designers at their homes and in their workshops, talking about who they are and what their inspirations are and why they're making games and what their game is about. Kathleen was on the road for a month with them doing that. And then everyone comes to Gen Con, and it's like a couple days after Gen Con, because all the people who are our judges are busy at Gen Con doing their normal job. So then after Gen Con for 2 solid ass days, we filmed all this, all the like the pitching and the playing the game and the judges talking about it and the deliberation and the selecting a winner and everything in this like set that we built in a hotel conference room near Gen Con in Indianapolis. It was really cool. It was a super fun thing. And I say this a lot. Not enough people watched it. It was a very entertaining series. But
I feel like there was maybe a rash. I mean, maybe it's just my perception because we were doing it. But there's like a rash of like internet sort of contest game shows.
yeah,
That happened around that time.
maybe.
That has kind of died off as a concept.
Yeah.
That people that I guess that particular format maybe doesn't translate as well to YouTube or whatever than some other things.
Yeah. But you also mentioned, and Jason worked on an episode of Friday Nights.
Yeah.
So Friday Nights was the other big thing during this time.
What? No, it's the tentacles. Hello.
Damn. I'm sure we would have noticed that eventually.
I'm comfortable with that lie.
Because we talked a little bit about Commodore Hustle,
Yeah.
and then the It's Magic episode.
Yeah. That has come up many times,
Yeah.
I think, already over the course of this.
Because we spoke about that with Alex and Cameron, among other people. Here's the genesis of Friday Nights. We did that episode. It was just going to be an episode. It was just going to be one thing. That was it.
And it was like most Commodore Hustle. It was a fairly accurate portrayal
Yeah.
of what happened. You know, that we got these little bonus packs, and then kind of got back into playing Magic, and then, then the whole like realizing we were all adults and actually had like enough money to spend a ton of money on Magic cards now,
Yeah.
and that would be dangerous. So we should set a limit, and then immediately violating that limit.
I'd forgotten actually until Cameron, I think, mentioned it in the previous episode that when we were filming Daily Drop, that because it was right near Yellow Jacket at the time,
Right.
that people were just like ducking out and getting cards and coming back. Anyway, so we did that episode and people really liked it. People in the Magic online community really liked it. There wasn't really a lot of video content about Magic at the time, right? This was still, this was 2010 was when we started playing Magic again. Right?
And certainly not like content that wasn't just like gameplay.
Yeah. Yeah, there was that. There was like draft videos and deck tech. There was some amount of stuff on like Channel Fireball, but like
And like Magic Online streams.
yeah,
and all
not
that kind
nearly
of
to the extent that there is now. And Mike Robles, who was the community manager for Wizards of the Coast or for Magic at that time, was really into it and like linked it around a bunch and sent us like a box of free stuff, which we never actually got. I feel bad for Mike, but like he was like, "Yeah, I'm going to send you guys a box of Magic stuff," and it got lost in shipping. We've gotten plenty of free stuff over the years. I'm not bummed about it. And then at PAX East, he'd mentioned something about saying hi to some folks. And I was like, "Yeah, could we say hi to people at Wizards and talk about this video?" In a rare instance of me being assertive for once in my life, I basically was like, "Hey, we can keep doing more of that just about Magic for you."
Was that where we had the meeting with Mark? Or was that later? Because you and I met with Mark Rosewater at PAX East.
Yes, but I think he was just sort of, I think it was before this meeting, because he was just sort of like, "Yeah, it was great fun, really loved it. And that's not my department." He was like,
Right.
because it's not Mark Rosewater's job to hire video people. But we did meet with the people whose job it was. And it happened that they were sort of like, "Yeah, we want to, we've internally decided that supporting video," because this was the big pivot to video around 2010 or whatever. And, this is a thing that we want to do. So they were like, "Yeah, we would like to get you to make some more episodes of a similar show for us." And this was the same time that they also brought Walk the Plains on board, because they'd been doing a couple things at GPs, again, on their own, and they were getting very popular as well. And so they sort of hired us both at the same time.
Making a web series about our playgroup is hard. Our metagame's been stuck in a rut lately.
Agreed.
Holy crap, are we telepathic?
It would seem that we are.
But how? It's almost like...
I put a spell on this town, but it's no fun without someone to enjoy it with. What if I stopped fighting and played more games? Not like video games, I need to go out and actually meet people.
How weird is this?
really weird. Why can't we talk normally?
This is slow motion. You can't talk during slow motion.
We did 4 episodes in, James has the timeline here, November of 2010. No, that doesn't make sense.
No. That ain't it, bro.
That's what you wrote down.
So
because it would have been 2011 before PAX East where we would have caught up with them.
So we met the PAX East 2011, and then nothing really happened for about a year, if you will recall, because we didn't actually produce the first 4 episodes of Friday Nights until February and March of 2012.
Yeah, we worked on them over the summer.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this before as well, that we were like, okay, so you will do the scripts and you'll see them and you'll approve those and then we'll go film them. And they were like, no, you just do whatever you would do. We don't want to be prescriptive. We want you to do your thing and make the jokes that you would make. And we went, okay. And then we did that and we produced 4 episodes and we sent them back to them and they were like, these are great. Awesome. We have some notes.
Yeah.
When we're like,
no, it's like we shot it and edited it and gave it like that. You told us that was, it's, yeah, especially at that time, things, stuff is different, or, things change at WotC all the time. But at that time, there was the division between WotC and Hasbro was quite firm.
Yeah.
And so it was great. Like, you hang out with the WotC people and talk to the WotC people, and they're all like, this is great, super creative, let's do this thing. And we're like, yes, okay. And then you do the thing. But then at a certain level, once you go up the levels and once, the contract gets written and there has to be lawyers involved and somebody has to write checks, then there comes the sort of, you hit the wall of like the Hasbro team.
Yeah.
Who don't really know are not in the same kind of, whatever business environment.
Yeah.
And yeah, there was a bunch of stuff that we had to change, a bunch of requirements, which we now know, and as we went on with Friday nights, like, aren't actually that big a deal. We just know there's certain areas that they don't want us to do in things that are sponsored, that were sort of sponsored deliberately by Wizards of the Coast. Talking about swearing and talking about like drugs or
some of those jokes I don't even think we'd make now. Some of them we definitely would, but there was ones we mentioned this at a pack. I mean, these deleted scenes are all on the DVD, by the way. If you have a DVD player.
Okay, so my commander is Johan, and he's not a cat, but I've determined he really, really likes cats. Also, he was the only commander that was in the right colors and was any good, so I have taken the liberty of redrawing his card to add the appropriate number of cats and the appropriate amount of cat love to it, just so we're all on the same page. I call this deck Paws of Fury.
Well, my commander actually is a cat.
Hey.
But there was the one of like, the amulet of cocaine as a funny idea for a card where it's like, it gives your creature haste, but then they don't untap next turn because they go real fast and then they get tired. And it's like, okay, yeah, I can see why you wouldn't want that. There was like a joke about box mapping or something.
Which they didn't want.
Which they were like, don't say that. And we're like, oh, yeah, all right, fair enough. So we did those 4 episodes. And the deal had been spoken. The spoken deal had been, we'll do those 4 episodes, and they did pay for those, to be clear.
Yeah,
like that was and again, we were happy to make those changes because it's like, yeah, we're making these on contract. You're literally hiring us to make this product for you, so you're the client.
That was also something we sort of deliberately did because, of course, It's Magic was part of Commodore Hustle.
Yeah,
and we were very deliberate when we were negotiating with Wizards of the Coast to make Friday nights. That it's like, yes, we're making Friday nights for you. The characters involved in it are loosely based on us.
Yeah.
Kind of an amped up version of our personality, which is also similar to the characters in Commodore Hustle, but it is not Commodore Hustle.
Yeah.
It is separate from Commodore Hustle.
Because the contract...
We maintain right for Commodore Hustle.
Yes.
And that's a completely separate thing.
Because the boilerplate contract was like, we can, we own all the characters and what's it that you create for this show. And we were like, no, because we didn't want to get into a thing because, Hasbro Legal is notorious, right? And so we didn't want to get into a situation where we suddenly can't keep producing Commodore Hustle because they're like, no, we own Graham, the character, right?
So, I mean, as you've been listening to this podcast, here are our various interactions with producing content for companies. We're slowly learning.
So, and we were like, hey, this is a problem. And they went, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. And they put a thing in there and it was fine.
Yeah, to their credit. Like, they have, generally treated us pretty good in that regard. Yeah.
And so the deal had been, we'll do those 4 episodes, and if people like them, if they get a good response, we'll do more. And people liked them, and they got a good response. And then it was just radio silence. We just didn't hear anything from anyone for like a year. I think we're like, oh, okay, well, I guess we're not doing any more of those. All right, continue on with our sketches and do other things, and that's fine. It's like, all right, well,
we got other things that we could do.
Yeah, that was a fun thing. Then I get a phone call from Trick, Patrick Jarrett, who still works at Wizards of the Coast. Is, you know, at the time I think was in charge of community. I think now he's higher up and doing broader things in content that they make. He apologized. First off, he opened with like, "Hey, sorry that you haven't heard from us," sort of thing. "I'm now in charge of this kind of thing, and I would like to get you to keep doing this show now on a more regular basis." And I was like, "Oh, we didn't really think we'd hear from you again. This is great." And so basically after that, it was like, "Yeah, we're going to do one of these a month, except November because we do Desert Bus." And then we did that for 77 episodes.
Wizards of the Coast has gone through various phases and sort of, I don't know whether it's changes in management or what, but they sort of they'll kind of come up with like, this is the new way we're going to do things. We're going to, you know, have a special process that people can apply to get to get funding to make things, or we're going to have these creators that we're specially doing. And so they kept kind of changing how they were doing their community outreach. And I guess we kind of were, they would like change something and we'd be like, "We're still cool though, right?" And they'd be like, "Yeah, okay." Like, okay.
Yeah. Okay.
And so yeah, it was always a little bit odd. And of course we started doing the pre-releases.
Yep.
Which, yeah, I guess was around this time as well.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We were definitely doing those concurrently. I mean, you know, very famously we shot the great Glen Ross stinger with Alison Lurs when she was up for a PPR.
Yeah.
Because only one thing counts in this life, and that's getting them to sign their match slip with a 0 next to the line that says win. Do you hear me, you casuals? A. Always. B. C. Casting. Always be casting. Always be casting. CABS. Cards that affect the board state. You want to mess around with do-nothing enchantments? Pure life gain spells? Like heck you do, because it's win or walk.
Eventually, there was one of those internal shifts that the series did not survive.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was very, and, you know, we've always said that, you know, there's no ill will. They're just sort of like,
yeah,
we no longer really wish to produce this show. And we were like, all right.
And they were just like, they were just pulling back from producing producing that kind of sort of
doing that stuff,
community
internally.
content in general.
Yeah. But if you're watching this and haven't heard it other places, they did give us the sort of like the rights to the show, like the name Friday Nights and basically the good graces and the legal ability to make the show ourselves, and which we'd intended to do. Very famously, we were going to launch a Kickstarter campaign for it in March 2020. We were basically ready to go, and then there was like this kind of flu going around, and we're like, let's like wait a couple weeks and see how this shakes out. And then it was like, no, it's major lockdown time now. We can't even get together to film it. And then I got cancer, and we'll talk about that later. But then it was like, all right, well, now we can't actually get around to doing it. But now
life happens.
Hopefully now.
But we have plans.
We're recording this in very late August, and the plan is to do that in the new year. So look for more Friday nights. And it's a shame too. It's like we've said this publicly a couple times in like update videos, but you know, it's so hard to get that information out there that like at MagicCon Barcelona, there was a lot of people that were like, "Oh man, I miss Friday nights. We should make more of that." And I was like, "Well, we're gonna," and it's like, "What? Really? Are you?" I'm like, yeah. And then we've said that we will.
Yeah, but then, you know, stuff happens.
Yeah,
that's how
our biggest
how it goes.
Our biggest challenge over all the years of doing this has literally just been like getting the word out. Not just about watching our stuff, which by the way, tell your friends, but it's literally like any relevant piece of news, you know, it just sort of getting that information out there. I think we've finally stopped getting comments on Checkpoint of like, wait, are Graham and Kathleen like together? I think we've finally stopped getting those comments, but you know, they had those for a while, right? It's like, it's like they have a child. What?
I mean, to be fair, that wasn't like a piece of news we were trying to push out to the community.
Broadcast that, but it's just sort of funny that it's like, you know, obviously we know it's funny. It's because we know a bunch of stuff that like individual viewers won't know, but we don't know anything as much as the conglomeration of our viewers know. Anytime it's like, what video was that? I'm gonna go ask the Discord, hey, what video was it where I said this? And 5 minutes maximum before someone's like, oh, this one, link.
Yeah. When I'm doing graphics for Checkpoint, there's been a couple times where I've been like, I need a picture of Beej sleeping. Who's got, it's like, what was a video in which we've got like a good picture of Beej sleeping? And people will come back with like 3 or 4 different potential ones. I'll be like, I think this one's the best. Obviously, we were also producing just the regular sketches and stuff during this time.
Yeah, we're still doing the sketches and Checkpoint and, you know, other stuff during this time. And again, we're not talking about things strictly chronologically through all these episodes. It's broadly speaking 2 years at a time. But yeah, which is why this episode, we're sitting down to talk with Beej and Heather, who were not involved in Strip Search or Friday Nights at that period of time in any way, which is fine. So yeah, I guess let's throw over to them and hear a bit about moving here from Alberta. Hello, and now we are here with myself and Paul, of course, and Heather.
Hello.
And Beej.
Hello.
Or Brendan, as to clients.
No.
Yeah. Only to clients.
Only to clients. Yeah, we're now into sort of, you know, 2012, 2013, and 2012 was the first time that either of you did anything did anything. Great, good podcast. Goodbye, everybody. Involving Loading Ready Run.
Yeah.
Because it was, actually, I've forgotten the number, Desert Bus 6.
Yeah.
Where you came out to Victoria.
Oh, no, actually it was 5.
It was 5?
It was 5.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking at...
You moved out here in 2012.
Right. I'm looking at Heather's filmography. And that's the earliest date on it. Do you actually know, apart from Desert Bus, do you know your earliest appearances in a piece of Bionic Trousers media?
Do you want to go first or should I?
I think my earliest is in the background of a crap shot where I'm being held hostage.
Very close. It is in the loading time entitled Raindrops Keep Falling behind the scenes of Rapid Fire Season 3.
Oh, right.
We were filming out... it's called Raindrops Keep Falling because it was raining a lot. This is when we were filming the Archangel Gabrielle scenes out at Macaulay Point.
Right.
To make it look like a prison.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what you were doing. This is because this would have been before you moved out here. So I think you were just hanging around because that was 2012.
Mine was...
Yours is actually a sketch.
Yeah, cameo at the very end of the Very Best of Roomtone.
Very Best of Roomtone. That is correct.
Good I remember that because we invited you all out. Synaptic Chaos Theater, the improv troupe that Heather and I were both in, we invited Loading Ready Run to come hang out with us at our friends Dan and Manny's house, who are also in Synaptic Chaos Theater, because we were like, this should be a fun time to kind of get 2 comedy groups together to hang out.
How did we first work together?
Ian's fault. Skeletor's dick.
What?
Yeah, I know. It makes no sense, right? So you'll talk to them later, and Ian will give you a rundown. Yeah. So he was watching your stuff, and he was like, you guys got to watch this Commodore Hustle. It's really funny. I'm like, eh. And so then...
It's fine.
But then
Not my thing.
Well, I didn't watch any of it. I was like, I don't know if I want to watch... I have a real problem with enjoying...
Just one?
Oh, God. How long is the podcast? I have a real problem with watching anybody else's comedy content online when I'm trying to do comedy stuff myself, mostly because I don't want to end up in a position of wholesale lifting entire bits and other stuff and having that, because already quote Simpsons stuff, Futurama stuff, old stand-up comedy, old sketch stuff.
It's
nonstop.
easy to have that kind of accidentally burrow its way into your sort of.
Yeah, and it just kind of felt like I don't want to do that because of that, and B, also because I get incredibly jealous of anyone who's doing better than I am with this kind of stuff too. So I'd rather just not know about them, so that I feel like, okay, I can live on my own without knowing that these guys are also doing a thing.
I'm fine watching stuff on TV.
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, obviously they're doing better.
Exactly.
They have a TV show.
Right?
That's on another echelon.
Yeah.
But watching other like internet sketch comedy, I'm like,
Yeah,
that's not even true actually. Because I mean, Paul and I we used to watch a lot of. I'm thinking particularly of Old English.
Oh yeah,
Old English comedy. This was Adam Conover's old.
Wow.
Troupe. He wasn't even a main. He was one of the main members, but like there was another couple guys that were, I think, seemed to be at the forefront of most of the sketches. But there was them. They were great. No, I don't remember anybody else now.
Of course, now we know that because we've known several people who have gone, either from television to internet or internet to television, that it is the level of fame and production is not actually that different.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Skeletor's Dick is just like the sketch that Ian showed us.
Yeah, he's a
weird choice.
Well, because he was talking up all this other stuff, and then finally he's like, "You have to come watch this." I'm like, "Okay," and
I mean, it's a good one. I'm proud of it, but it's not like indicative.
And I was just
when
like,
you think about Ian, is it that weird of a choice?
I was just like, who, like, so these guys make, like, they do comedy music and they do their own music videos, and then he's like, no, this is just like a thing that they did on top of everything.
Yeah, it wasn't even our song.
But that's the thing. I was completely confused because I was like, so is this? And he's like, well, we think maybe, like, but probably not really. And it's like, I'd have no idea. And so then, like, later on, at some point, we ended up in Olds, and Ian was like, I am going out for Desert Bus 4. You'll hear about this later on a different podcast.
This isn't quite where we first met them. I'm pretty sure we met them at Anime Evolution first.
Oh, right, that's right.
Because I did a thing.
That's right. Because we went to you guys were going to Anime Evolution, the one that was at the Marriott downtown Vancouver, I think. It was like the fancy one at the convention center.
At the convention center. Like the main, like this is downtown Vancouver. They have a very fancy convention center right on the water.
Yeah.
Beside
like
Canada
literally
Place.
floating on the water. Yeah.
There's a Douglas Copeland statue of a dolphin, an orca outside. This pixelated statue. It's very cool.
Yeah.
We're all there. Ian's very excited because he knows who you are. We've never met. And we're all together at like one of the breakfasts. Like, because there's like a free breakfast that like all the guests can go to, and Ian's like fanboying.
That was next year.
Was that next year?
Yeah, because the previous year you showed up. So you showed up to the. We're gonna get this right. You showed up to the Anime Evolution to our practice session that was in like a glass doored room. That we had like a little green room, and I was just kind of like, I don't know about this guy, like, Ian. Like, I know we want to, like, we want to get along with these people because you want to get along with these people. So let's get along with Loading Ready Run.
Right.
But I don't know anything about how Graham is on stage, and I mean, none of us do. So let's just do this practice and find out. And you were good, and we're like, okay, cool. So you could play the games and do everything else. And so we're like, okay, great, this is going to work. Because that's kind of my policy when I was like I was kind of the de facto leader of SCT, even though I wasn't really the leader. Like, we kind of all ran it together, and so my policy was that if people are going to come on stage, then we have to at least have a practice session with them so that everyone gets a chance to know them, see how they kind of do, so that we don't get out there and like be like, are they going to be good? Are they going to fucking freeze up? Like,
I don't think that should be a controversial stance.
I don't think so either. Some people think it is. So anyway,
I mean, I only mention this now because we in episode 1 of this, where Paul and I talk about sort of like what we did in high school and our personal origins. I forgot to mention my improv, my earliest sort of improv experience was that someone, actually the person that I talked about who was like the writer for that animation Gloobs that I did, he was like, hey, I'm going to go try out for this thing. And I was like, what thing? I don't know what this is. I'm going to follow you. And it was like a I didn't really understand what it was at the time either, but I auditioned anyway, and the auditions were just like doing a bunch of improv games, and I was like, oh, I've seen Who's Line. Yeah, sweet, let's do this.
Yeah.
And then they accepted me and not him. And yeah. And so this was the group was Speak which stood for Student Performers Entertaining and Acting for Kids. And so the idea was,
those.
yeah, someone wanted to put together a group of high school kids doing like scenes about issues to go and talk to children.
Wow.
And yeah,
I feel like I've never actually seen one of those outside like SNL sketches.
Yeah, it turns out they existed. Yeah, we had a T-shirt and everything. And the first couple meetings we just sort of did improv games, and I was like, "Oh, this is sweet." And then they were like, "All right, now we got to knuckle down and like actually do some of this." And I was like, "What are we doing?" And we did one on like drunk driving. It's
a very funny concept.
Yeah, I played like the guy that was like hosting a party and making sure that people didn't leave drunk. And then I did.
Hosting a party is a standard improv game, so you know exactly. What to do.
It's like, and what funny thing do you have going on? No,
getting drunk is also a standard improv thing too.
Yeah, I did some of these for church group stuff.
And then we did a scene about how you shouldn't use gay as a pejorative. You know, like, oh man, that's so gay.
Trendsetter,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And now these days, the kids say everything's gay, but in a positive way.
Yeah. It was great. I had to stand. You can picture this in your head. Little black box theater, right? I played the homosexual. And so I had to stand in the middle while the rest of them orbited around me, hurling slurs.
But at the end, did you wave your hands and go, comedy?
How old were you?
These weren't supposed to be funny.
How old were you at this?
And this was like grade 10.
Oh, wow. That sounds like a great time.
Yeah. These weren't supposed to be funny. These are meant to be serious things. But I joined for the goofs.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, Jer was super into the theater sports type stuff too, right?
Yeah. So yeah.
You with a sign around your neck that says the homosexual.
Close.
Yeah.
I'd been doing improv type stuff since at least sort of mid-high school. Wow. But my favorite, actually, years later, when we were doing, I don't remember what point in their branding this was, but the local anime convention up at University of Victoria. I think it was SakinoCon at this point.
Okay.
At the point of this
Sometimes,
particular
they do
story.
change their names.
Where I had been on stage with Synaptic Chaos, and it was you and Ian and Dan and some other folk like Will and other people
Ryan,
were there.
probably,
yeah, like a bunch of folks that I know way less well. I don't goodly know them
fine.
Anyway. And afterwards, I was outside with Dan, and I was like, "How'd that go?" You know, like he asked me. You know, he's like, "So, like, hey, how was that?" And I was like, "That was great. I had a wonderful time." How? Because I worry. I'm like, how was I? And Dan thought about it for a moment, and this was great. He was like, well, you say no a lot. But I think it's because you are used to sketch comedy, and you are seeing where you think a scene will go, and you are trying to drive to that point, rather than just sort of seeing what happens. And that's, I will freely admit that's very true, because one of the hardest things that Paul and I have dealt with for years doing sketches, and this was especially relevant during the crap shoot, where we're trying to write a miniature sketch live in front of everybody, is like everyone has funny ideas, right? But at some point somebody needs to go, please Christ, we need an ending. How do we get out of this scene? Like something needs to happen to stop this sketch. I guess just subconsciously, I'm always looking for like, what's the logical progression of this sketch here? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And so I will, I guess, be a bad improviser in that regard sometimes.
I remember when we did shoot a lot of sketches, when we often, we had sort of our group of friends and stuff, but then, we bring in people to that we thought would be good for a particular part or whatever. And often they would be people with improv experience, just because they are often very funny people and talented actors and stuff. But one thing that you really notice people who have improv experience is they'll mess up a line, but then try to keep the scene going. And we have to be like, no, you can just stop and we can do it again. You don't need to like keep going and like improv a different thing.
The power of editing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I did a thing with you at the anime convention in Vancouver.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, cool, that was fun. I'll never see them again.
Yes.
Right? Like not that I was like, I don't want to talk to them anymore. I was just like, yeah, that was a neat thing.
Now they're going to go back to Alberta.
Yeah, I can't remember. I guess it was probably Ian who contacted me.
Yes.
Oh, I wonder if I could find the email.
Oh, you should maybe look for it
But
before you interview them.
That's what I mean. Like I remember being at an anime convention.
That was next year, yeah.
I remember Ian being like, "They're over there. That's like so and so," and Beej being like, "Oh yeah," and you just like, I think you went and sat right in front of Tally.
I didn't give a shit
and you
about
were just
anything.
like, "Hello," and Ian was doing that thing of like, "Please don't embarrass me. Please don't embarrass me. What are you doing?"
Because we were all sitting at there was like 8 of us, and or more, and we were sitting at one table in the cafeteria at UBC, and the old cafeteria too. So we're enjoying eggs for breakfast because they had a huge spread on. It was like free, so I got up early and yeah, Ian was
Beej
all
will
like,
get up early for breakfast.
"Oh,
That's
every
great.
time. If there's eggs, I will get up early for breakfast." And so I just I didn't give a shit about what Ian thought because he was all like, "Oh no, like don't frustrate them. Don't do anything to make us look weird." I'm like,
Yeah.
"You bet." And I immediately stood up with my food, walked over and sat in front of Tally, who was like eating, and Graham, you were sitting beside her, I think, and you were typing stuff on your laptop.
Mhm.
And she just kind of like was eating. I sat down. I'm in my full con regalia, and she stops and looks up at me. And she goes, "Hello," and I go, "Hi." And Ian, and I can tell Ian's just like, there's like tension. I could feel a rubber band just being stretched to its absolute limit. And
Except
then
we were all probably completely oblivious
Oh,
of
yeah.
this tension.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And then at which point you looked up and you looked right at me and go, "Oh, hi, Beej." Like you just like that. You were just like, "Oh, hi, Beej." And Tally just immediately went, "Oh, like, oh, we know who this is, apparently." And then we went out for you guys did your stuff, we did our stuff. I think we had you on stage again for something else.
Yeah.
Maybe
we
somebody
were
else.
we were around each other during the guest dinner portion because we were all like goofing around stealing hats from each other and like other weird stuff by that point.
I was like sitting with Alex and I think our Paul. We had a Paul at the time. And I was sitting with Alex at a
We never had them fight.
never did.
I don't think they've ever met.
I don't think they did either. You guys were sitting at two different tables.
You didn't, I don't think you met our Paul.
It's for the best. If you touch each other, it just cancels. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I sat with Alex, and for 25 minutes at dinner, he did close-up magic.
Right.
Because he was
Yeah,
doing
he
it
was
all
doing
the
that
time.
at that time.
And so
Right.
he was just like, he started doing some tricks, and I was like, keep going. Keep going. And people love an audience, right?
Oh,
So
yeah.
that's just, he just wanted to keep going. I'm like, show me everything you know.
There was a period of time where he got super into that, and we integrated that into that episode
Into
of
the magic
Common
episode
Hustle.
of
Yeah,
Common
yeah.
Hustle. Yeah.
We went to the guest party, which was in one of the big concrete in the Gage building, the huge concrete structures they had for like dorms and everything. And we were all hanging out as you guys and us and about the 7 or 8 other guests that were there.
The voice actors who were
there.
much more popular than the rest of us.
And then all the staff who come out to come do this thing as well. So we're all kind of hanging out in the kitchen and stuff, and it's just a madhouse. And I'm talking with, I think I was talking with Kathleen about Loading Ready Run, and she was telling me about kind of what your business strategy was overall, like what the thing is, what you were doing. And I said, cool. So what happens when you're 40 years old? What happens, Graham?
I'll let you know next June, I guess.
Yeah. I think you made it.
Yeah. I did say eventually, I can't remember when we talked about this. I think it was in the first episode, but like eventually my dad did stop going, "So what's your plan?" You know, and eventually it's like, okay, I don't need to understand it. It seems to be working, right? Like, you know, Serge was talking about talking to his relatives.
Oh yeah.
This was not on the podcast. This was, you know, trying to explain to the extended family or something what you do for a job. And I'm like, look, eventually you just have to say, please accept that I am earning a living. Just please understand. You don't need to get you know, I know it probably doesn't make sense to you.
Yeah.
Please just accept that it's working.
And it's not fraud.
Yeah. Yes, it's not fraud. It's not illegal.
So our plan was, like with SCT anyway, most of us were like, we'll have our jobby jobs, and then on the weekends, cons will pay us to travel to them. They'll pay us a very small appearance fee, because that's what it was. They'll pay for our hotels and stuff. And then we will get to enjoy a con all weekend. And we'll get to
Sounds dope.
do 3 shows and a bunch of panels and have a great time. Odafest was kind of the pinnacle of that for us in Calgary.
Was one of the best conventions for us.
Absolutely. You know, the hotels and travel and per diem.
And they were very nice to us. Like if any convention from the past was like, you want to come back, I'd definitely go to Odafest again.
Main theater shows, like basically like we'll give you the works. I'm like, thank you very much, and we will put a ton of work into making sure that we give you a ton of content.
Oh yeah.
Because that was kind of the impetus, is to just be like, if we're going to be here and do stuff for you, let's give you a reason. Let's give you 15 hours, 20 hours of content so you can.
If anyone listening is part of any organizational committees for conventions, that's our attitude. If you're like, hey, come to our convention, we'll give you a free badge. Then I'm like, all right, sure, I'll come to your convention. What do you want to do a panel? Sure. If you're like, we'll help you travel, we'll put you up in a hotel, then I'm going to be like, great, what can I do? How many panels can I be on for you?
Yeah.
How much content? You're flying me out there, you're paying for my hotel? Sweet. How much value can I give you for this, right? Like, we are very keen to do stuff.
I feel like we used to confuse them because we were like, how many panels do you want? We have like 8 to 15 we can give you in the weekend.
And AnimeCon panels, because they're almost all AnimeCons are run like independently, right? They're not run by like ReadPop or something like that. They love knowing that you have 15 or 20 hours of content just available that they can just drop into a schedule to fill up space. Because like, oh, we can put you here and here and here and here and here. It's like, great, yeah, do it. And they're like, great, I filled a room. They're done. They don't have to think about what else to put in those spaces. And they know they could rely upon us to do it properly. And we even like partnered our friend Erin Dearden, who does Magical Girl content on YouTube now.
Yep.
She was running the anime match game. And we eventually just kind of said to her, look, just have us as your guests, have us as your panel for match game, and then bring in people from the audience to be the contestants, because we won't screw you over while we're doing the show. Because if you just pick randos to be up here, they don't know how to act. Pick us to be your celebrity guests. We get exposure to more people, but then also we will behave.
Yep.
You get some consistency as well.
Yeah. I've done the blankety blank panel, which is just match game at PAX East for Susan Arendt a bunch. And yeah, that's the only way to do it, is the contestants from the audience. The panel, you have to know who the panel are.
Yeah.
Or that whole show is just going to die.
It turns into amazing like chaos, or it turns into just the most boring chaos.
Well, or the worst thing that you get is you get the person who's very excited to be on stage, and then they get on stage and they realize they're on stage and they shut down. And nobody knows what to do in that situation, because you don't want to embarrass them, but nobody's moving now.
I guess we should pivot to like why we came out, though.
Yeah, I was going to say, so like, I did find an email from Ian, and I'll share that.
Oh, great.
Next episode, the earliest one. It's not setting up for that one, so maybe it's an email from you from earlier. I don't know. I've got correspondence about Calgary Comic Expo with Ian.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
But not Anime Evolution or whatever it would have been. So that worked out. Basically, professionally, our relationship had been, I was a guest on your improv panel once.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
How did because I legitimately don't remember.
Con friends.
Yeah, how did we get to and also come out for Desert Bus? Was someone just like, oh, you should come out for Desert Bus, or did you did you push for that?
Ian did.
Okay.
Ian wanted
Desert
to go
Bus
Desert
4.
Bus.
Right.
Is that the one where I threw the blanket in?
Yes.
Yes, no, it would be, because I remember I was still in college and
Octopimp was the one who was going to purchase it. It seemed very much.
I did the big Goomba blanket. Craft Along wasn't even a thing yet.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, and you donated it, and it made the most money of anything ever.
I was so sad when I donated it.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, hey, Tally, you do here, take this and sell it at Desert Bus. Nobody wants it for some reason.
Yeah, Heather had it up. It took her so long to make this beautiful beautiful Goomba blanket.
It was like a pixel art Goomba.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it could cover a queen size bed.
I remember that. Yeah.
I tried to sell it for $300.
No takers. That sold for
That barely
$3,000 at Desert Bus.
Barely covers the yarn.
Sorry, I did just find it actually.
Good.
Oh.
June. This is an email from June 3rd, 2009.
Oh yeah.
And it was from Ian, asking to do a thing at I think at one of the Anime Evolution, and then I responded with like, yeah, sure, sounds fun, and then Ian was like, cool, I'm gonna loop Beej in. I'll be adding Brendan Beej Dery as he is handling coordination of our shows. And then here's the Here's the email from you. Greetings, A.
That's how I always used to start emails. Not anymore. It was at some point I stopped realizing I was writing it.
And then you were like, do you want to do a regular show or the mature show?
Yeah.
Right, the 18 plus shows.
Yeah, which we always tout as being the most like horniest shows that we have, except that we kind of had it at a certain point. We made a tacit agreement just within the group to be like, don't be horny, like don't get out there and start making sex jokes or being crude or whatever. You can curse if you want to, but let's see how clean we can play it, and let's see how dirty the audience makes it.
Right.
That was a lot more fun actually when we started playing it that way.
So you came out for Desert Bus 5.
Yes, because Ian went out for 4, and he'll cover that when he covers that. And we watched Heather's Blanket sell live on Justin TV. Was it Ustream?
I think so.
Whatever it was.
Probably. I remember it. I remember the blanket.
Yeah, and we watched it sell, and I was like, holy shit. And then we were watching Ian and Corey, and Ian seemed to be having the time of his life. And I was like, man, because he said to me, he's like, you should come out. And I'm like, I am unemployed. Like, I can't just straight up afford to, like, I had money, but I can't just say I'll pay for a WestJet flight, go out there and then stay for a week and come back, or stay for a day or whatever. Like, it's like, I can't just afford to drop money on a plane ticket and go do this. And after he came back after 4, I was like, I should have gone out since I had an invite, right? I should have just found a place to stay and done whatever. And so for Desert Bus 5, because we now already hung out at like Calgary Comic Expo, you guys came over to the sausage barbecue that we had, and we filmed some stuff, and we got to meet more of the crew, and we got to hang out more and do all that. Then I was more comfortable being like, is it okay if I come to Desert Bus? How do I ask? Who do I ask? And I think Ian had just said to email somebody from either you or somebody else.
Probably.
But it was, I got information from somebody.
It was way less structured back then.
And then somebody told me, they're like, you can stay on Jaron Talley's floor. Jaron Talley didn't tell me that I could stay on Jaron Talley's floor. Somebody else did, and I had no idea how to contact either Jer or Talley.
Because we basically put like a whip round internally and been like, who can bill it out of town volunteers, right? And Jaron Talley were like, yeah, we can fit 2 people on a air mattress.
Yeah, and so
someone else would have been like, great, meh, there.
Yeah, done.
Yeah.
And so then I showed up, and I asked, like Heather couldn't go because you're still in college.
I was in school.
Yeah.
But Desert Bus was great for that. I had that on while I was up till like 2 a.m. hand sewing shit.
Yeah.
Nice.
And that kind of worked for me too, because I flew out, and when I arrived, the first thing I did was get on the bus from the airport. It's a terrible idea. And then stand on the side of the highway waiting for the next bus. And then rode the bus into town and tried to find where Moonbase Mark III was, because I had no real good idea, and I didn't. My 3GS was not really great at like whatever. So
phones were not that good back then.
They were not that good, and so but I found my way, and I walked along, and I showed up at 10:30, and it's like, okay, yeah, go. Where is everything happening? You can kind of hear some noise because we were in the back. So I walked around to the back, and there was a party going on. I'm like, that must be me. That must be the thing I showed up for. And I walked in.
So it had already started.
Yeah, and I had my guitar and everything else, and everything was going, because this is like at night. This is like late at night. And I walk in, and Alex is sitting on the couch, and he looks up at me, and he's like, oh, hey, dude. Like, he got so excited. So excited to see me, because I hadn't told anybody else that I was coming out. Like, whoever knew I was coming, and I thought everybody would know. He didn't know, it seemed like. And he was just so excited, I just immediately deflated. I was like, oh, thank God that I'm
figured it out.
Somebody likes seeing me here. This is great. And so the option was, if you want, you can stay here late. I says, I always stay up late. So I stayed on the overnights, and that's basically, I jumped into Zeta Shift immediately, before it was even Zeta Shift, obviously.
Yeah.
And was just like, I've got my guitar with me. I've got stuff I could do. We'll just hang out all night and see what happens. And then like by the 3rd night, I was like playing with the mixer settings and stuff, and trying to get stuff to work properly at the front, like just kind of be the technical guy on the overnight and be like, well, how did I luck into doing this? I don't know, but now I'm doing some of this stuff. And yeah, it was a blast. And the other Ian gave me a ride back to the airport when I was done at the end of the week. And I showed up at the airport saying, I'm here to fly home. And they asked for my ticket. I gave it. They're like, you missed your flight. And I'm like, how did I miss my flight? Like I've got like an hour before I have to. She's like, no, your flight was yesterday.
Ooh,
Because I was on the
I
overnight,
remember that.
and I
Right.
didn't have a clue as to what day it was when I was leaving. So she rebooked my flight for an extra $50, and I was
Wow.
able to make it home.
Lucky.
So, yeah,
All right.
WestJet back when they gave a shit about people.
Oh yeah.
But staying on Jerry and Tally's floor was interesting too, because it was like to walk back and forth to their apartment, and it's raining out. But meanwhile, I know that in November in Alberta, it's just snow everywhere.
Yep.
And I'm like, it's raining here, which means it's not snowing, which actually means it's kind of great. And after just being exhausted after Desert Bus and getting rained on constantly, and having to like walk in the dark to the moon base Mark III, and then having to walk back when it's light out to their place, and then sleep on the floor. And Liz was actually staying on their floor too.
Oh wow. Okay.
And so she would leave, and I would come in. That's kind of what would happen. Is
Morning, Ralph.
Morning, Sam.
Yeah.
We just trade spots practically. I don't think we used the same air mattress ultimately, but we weren't sleeping at the same time. And yeah, that whole experience was just like, wow, this rules. Like especially in like your mid-20s, it's like this is still a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah.
Even if I'm not like sleeping in a bed. And I got home and said to Heather, I'm like, we should maybe actually seriously consider moving to Victoria if we're going to move to the West Coast after we're done here in Olds.
See, I was going to ask about that because we certainly didn't ask you to come out here.
No, I mean, and we do that
sort of
thing
showed
too that everybody else does when someone else is like, maybe we should move out there. And we're like, are you sure? It's very expensive.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because I was in college, I finished.
That was second year, maybe?
I thought I finished mid 2012.
I think you did.
And we were like, okay, cool. We live in a tiny town that we do not actually want to live in because summers were wretched there. There was no one around. There was nothing to do.
Yeah,
You've
earlier
gotta
when Beej
drive.
said we went to Olds, that the town is named Olds.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It's not one you even in
Not
Canada.
pejorative.
It's not one you probably will have heard of.
The school I went to, Old College, is an agricultural school. So, of course, I learned costume cutting there,
Costume cutting.
construction, theater stuff.
Hey.
They're
Just because you're farming doesn't mean you don't want to have a cool costume on.
Exactly.
When I graduated, it was like the 100th anniversary. So during the graduation ceremony, we got to watch a black and white thing about women plucking chickens and their proud history, which they neglected to point out was they had a sewing program so the women could show up to meet the nice men and get married.
Yeah.
That sewing program became a little bit more.
Yeah.
By
Like
the time
most of what the college is known
yeah.
for. Okay.
Well,
But-
so the college is known for its agricultural thing. Like that's and literally across Canada, they have one of the best agricultural programs out of any like institution you can go to in Canada. Apparently, it's like they're renowned for that. But they were also like, well, we need a business program, and they already had the sewing program.
Oh, that's right. That was under the business side.
Yeah, so they had this terrible business program, and they had the sewing program became the fashion program, which they integrated under there, and they stole the costume construction program from Red Deer College.
Well, they took it from Red Deer College because Red Deer College wasn't going to do it anymore, but they still had a theater program. So by Olds taking it, that meant we could do like an intern thing for a semester over there.
Yeah, she built a fat suit for Twelfth Night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
That was very difficult. There are very, very little resources on the internet about how to build fat suits.
Yeah.
At the time.
But
maybe that's different now.
And our stance was like when I got back, I'm like, hey, I know we were talking about what we're gonna do when you're done. So we did briefly talk because we're like, we don't want to move back to Edmonton.
Well,
really.
our options were if we stay in Alberta, Edmonton or Calgary.
Those are the two
We
largest centers.
Didn't really want to go to Calgary. Edmonton was like a maybe.
Yeah. We had a lot of friends back there and everything too, but it was ultimately like maybe Edmonton is not the go for this.
Ian and Corey, well, Ian at least was also talking about the possibility of wanting to move out to the West Coast at one point.
Yeah.
And we're like, clearly he's not doing that yet, and we don't know if he ever will. But Victoria was very nice.
Yeah. And we knew there were lots of West Coast cons that we could be doing.
Yeah.
And so it was like, so even if I can get a job anywhere, right? So I'll get my full-time job working out on the West Coast, maybe in Vancouver or maybe in Victoria, maybe in Nanaimo, like that kind of idea. And then what we would do is then more of us would be on the West Coast in Snap to Chaos Theater. And then it would be, yes, we'd have to make a big travel back to Calgary, which we did for a while. We were traveling back to Calgary to do Oda Fest, and they were very amenable. And by that point, they'd moved out of the university, and now they're doing proper convention center stuff. Like, they were a big deal, which is always great. Like, I love Oda Fest to bits. And we were like, yeah, but then we'll be closer to all the West Coast conventions, which should be simpler.
Yeah.
And we moved out here, and they started to slowly
Yeah,
die.
they kind of started to, well, because they had a weird, like, conventions on the West Coast were like...
You have so much drama out here on the West Coast.
The fan
I've
conventions
heard.
especially.
I'm not
had,
really
like,
involved
a lot
in
of,
it,
like,
mercifully.
we're angry, we're making our own convention. So there was like a
the
kind of a
sea air.
burst
I
of
don't know.
conventions for a while,
Are
and
there
then
two
they
competing, almost identically named anime conventions in Vancouver still?
I don't know if still, but Anime Evolution, at some point, somebody did start Anime Revolution because they were mad at Anime Evolution.
Anime Revolution still exists.
Okay.
I don't know if Cause and Effect does.
Yeah, probably not.
Because they were around for a little bit.
They were also a response con that was more of a, we want to do a cosplay focus con.
What was the one that we did in Vancouver when we stayed at the residences in
at UBC?
UBC.
Yeah, the Gage residences?
Yeah.
Probably, that was Anime Evolution.
Yeah, Evolution.
Yeah. Revolution became more of a corporate con. And there's just always been, I could talk con stuff for hours. There's just always been a thing of
That's too corporate.
somebody in a con will get mad about another con. They'll start theirs.
Yeah, splinter.
Yeah. And then that one of those two cons, either one, you never know which one. One of them will be found out 5 years later for corporate malfeasance, and you'll never know which one it is until it happens. Which one is like turns out was the one where it's like, oh, so and so put up $50,000 of somebody else's money and spent it on a whole bunch of stuff without oversight, and now all the creditors are coming looking for shit. And it's like, yeah, this has been awful.
Yeah, you were talking about the good parts of the anime conventions being independently managed and not run all by like Reed or a management company or something.
Yeah.
These are the bad parts.
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
a lot of fan-run events come from fan clubs, which come from a group of people who are friends, and sometimes drama happens.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you all have an event that you can have drama over.
But yeah,
Yay.
we decided to come out here. We were like, I guess the plan was 5 years.
The plan was we'd come out here, we'd try to make a go of it for 5 years, and if after 5 years we were like, well, this stinks, we'd figure out where to move after that.
Yeah.
Reasonable plan.
Yeah, so we were kind of like living real lean and just kind of being like, let's see what happens. And we're moving house every year because that's how it works in Victoria. You can't stay in the same place until, for more than a year, it seems. Paul, you've not had that experience, I realize. But
Rent either got too high, or if we were renting from like a landlord who like owned a house or something, they would decide to sell.
Right.
And that seemed to happen consistently,
Well, I remember
like year after year.
when you first moved out here. So I've recently learned this is a very North American thing, to be measuring distances in minutes.
Yes.
Rather than like distance.
Yeah.
And when you moved here, I was like, oh, hey, like Beej and Heather, they're actually moving to Victoria. Oh, cool. Where are they moving? Oh, they're moving 30 minutes out of town in Langford. And everyone was like, oh, okay, well, see them never, I guess.
Yeah. Which to us, when we were living in, so when I lived in Edmonton.
It's different in the prairies.
Yeah. When I lived in Edmonton, I lived in St. Albert, which is a bedroom community of, you can kind of think of it as like the Langford to the Victoria kind of idea. And it was about, I would ride a bus every day from St. Albert to university or to when I was working there. And that'd take about an hour and 10 minutes. So it's like, you did that. If I was going to go see my friends, I might like get in my car and drive mostly on highways within Edmonton, like taking the white mud and stuff for people who are from Edmonton. You know what I'm talking about. And that might be a 45-minute drive to go see my friends, to drive from the north end to the south end, and then we drive back up to the north end to go do something else, and we go somewhere else. It's just like you're hanging out in cars and you're chatting, you're having a good time, and you're going from place to place to do things. So this idea of I live 25 minutes away from where all the stuff is happening, of course that'll be easy to go back and forth.
Yeah.
And then I lived out here and realized that, the buses are not terribly amenable to that.
I don't know what happened, because I know when I lived in Edmonton, a 45-minute bus drive to work, even like on a Sunday especially, would be like an hour and a half, because buses are weird on Sundays.
Yeah.
And that's why I did a lot of crochet and made pixel blankets, because they're much more portable. And it's like, oh yeah, sure, an hour and a half on the bus, yeah, it sucks, but what are you gonna do? Everybody's got to do it. You move out here, it's like, it takes like a half hour on a bus on like a good day to get to the city from Langford.
And people are like, why would you even bother going there?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why I bother going anywhere. It's awful.
We've only got the one highway artery, and it sucks.
Yeah.
It's a little better now, but it still kind of sucks.
Yeah, you get become weak and soft very quickly.
Yes. I mean, like we would when we lived in Olds, we would drive into Calgary once a week to visit Dan and Manny, and that's an hour's drive, 120 kilometers an hour. We would drive an hour out to see them, and we'd hang out with them for the evening, and then we'd drive an hour back to Olds. That's just what you did, because it was like, that's how we're going to go see our friends, and we're going to try not to go crazy.
It's like, oh, we can't meet up in 10 minutes?
It's like, no, I can't see you today, because it'd be like 15-minute walk.
That'd be the whole day.
Or drive or whatever it is.
God, can you imagine?
And even I do that, and I'm like, I don't know how I got here.
Yeah. It's a very different feeling, and
we slowly enticed you closer and closer.
Well, and you did
to town, yeah.
I mean, because I remember when we moved out here, when we told you, when you specifically, because saying Langford, you was like, oh, I swore I would never go back there, and that stuck in my head because I was like, there's a truth to this that I feel like, because I did discover, like, it's like people who live in Victoria proper, who don't live in the Western communities, they don't. There's no reason for them to make the trips out there, so you don't. And it was just like, yeah, I guess that's kind of, because I think some of you came out. We had a party at our place out in Langford the one time, and then
I remember visiting your place at least once, if not twice, but that's probably about it.
Yeah, and then we moved. We found a place in Vic West, which
we made that terrible. Well, no, maybe it wasn't terrible. When we moved in between anime conventions, so we did like
awesome idea.
We did like Otafest or Animathon or something, and then we did. And then we moved all of our stuff so that we could then just like and like literally the box showed up and we didn't unpack anything. We just went to Vancouver to do like Anime Evolution or something.
Yeah.
And then I think we even went to PAX the weekend after, and then we finally started unpacking.
I think, yeah, because it was like we put the essentials in our car so we would have something, which meant we had like our air mattress and whatever else. And it was just like the box shows up, we've got it for about a month. It can just sit there because it's just at the end of this driveway and nobody needs in. And we were just like, let's do all these cons. We have to drive out to Vancouver anyway. Let's just go all the way to Victoria and move into our new house. And then it was like, great, we're here. Let's go to Anime Evolution.
This is not a decision I would want to make now.
No, not at this
stage. I'd be like so tired.
Yeah.
So what was the transition from, we're now living in Victoria to, hanging out with Loading Ready Run?
When I had like my first free weekend, you guys had said that, well, we meet on Saturdays to film sketches. So if you want to come be in a sketch or like help out or do whatever. And so I had it in my mind. I'm like, I'm going to show up and I'm going to help out. Even if I'm not going to be in any sketches, I'm going to find something to do and they will show me how to do it. So I showed up and was like, we need someone to hold the boom. And I'm like, yes. And that's what you need, is you always need an enthusiastic person who doesn't know how bad it's going to get. So hold the boom.
I got a couple pictures of you with the boom early on. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I was like, I will hold the boom. And I think I showed up that first time and you were like, we need it was a Commodore Hustle. And I was at the table and I'm like, that's weird. Why am I? It's like, oh, we thought it'd be funny because we're going to get our landlord to come in and do something, but he couldn't make it for this one. So instead we're just going to have you be like, oh, I don't work for you. Like was the line.
Yep.
What? I thought we were gonna, I don't work for you. So I'm just gonna. And so I just delivered that line. I'm now just cameo in a hustle, right? And it's like, and that's fine. And then I just held the boom for that, and it's like, that was fun. And I came back next weekend and did it again, and I was kind of trying to say, do you want to come out and do this too?
Yeah, I mean, moving was rough. School,
was
I
enough.
literally didn't know what to do after school because I was doing like 16, 18-hour days and then nothing. So I just sat on a couch, like being like, I don't know what to do now.
I mean, this was after. This is what I experienced in high school when I was working on the animated films, right? Is because I'd be working on them so much, and like I would finish school, come home, and just work on this animation I was doing for months, and then as soon as it was done, I was like, well, now what do I
get a job?
Oh no, yeah, and so it was like I got to find something else to do with my time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you were like,
I was kind of going through some depression and stuff too at the time. So I was like, I don't know if I want to hang out with strangers that I don't know that well.
And part of the program that you were in did have a thing where it's like, if you want to, we can give you a recommendation to join the industry.
Well, I was supposed to take a union test thing, and I didn't have the time between all my schoolwork, so I would have had to do a proper union test. but also the industry in Victoria is much more volunteer-based than paid-based for where my career would have been. I'd have to go to Vancouver.
For like theatrical
Yeah.
stuff? Yeah.
You would have still gotten paid, I think, but you have to kind of like stump up and get in. It's not people aren't throwing you work.
Have we never once capitalized on the fact that you literally went to school for making costumes because you're not interested or because we just have never asked?
I actually did a few things. I made the two-headed giant sweater that Alex and Cameron wore.
Oh, yeah.
I think I made some small fixes to the Torg and Herc costumes once or twice.
Oh, yeah. I think I was
just that kind
and
of
I
thing.
apologize for that. I think I just wasn't aware that that you literally went to school for that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really advertise it now because like I don't even have my sewing machines out, and I'm not really interested in making corsets and stuff. You couldn't afford that.
No. I just don't have the hips for it.
Yeah.
That's what the corset helps.
I know.
with.
I know. That is...
God, I saw pictures of men in like male tailored corsets.
Oh, yeah.
And people were like, "That looks really good." And then somebody said, "It looks really good because it's a waistcoat." And I'm like, "Oh, you're right. That's why it looks really good. It's just an over-engineered waistcoat. Of course, men look good in waistcoats, right?"
Right.
Yeah. But I've done like some minor
Waistcoat
alteration
and
things,
shapewear.
like early on,
Mm.
just because we needed it.
Yeah.
I think I made something, but I can't remember.
But you spent most of your time like while I was going to do that on the weekends because I had my jobby job, and so I was also doing that on like Saturdays and showing up and doing that too. And we tried to hang out with people whenever we could. And but you were working. You eventually got part-time work in like a lot of retail spaces, and that was just. At one point, I remember you saying, "Is like I think I might just have to go to Walmart," and I said, "No, resist it. Resist going to Walmart."
Yeah, I worked at a Walmart for 2 years.
Oof.
When you were back in Grand Prairie,
and I did like a lot of I bounced around. I've done cashier. I've done a lot of jewelry counter, which is generally not that bad to be in. That can be fun. I did housewares for a while. Housewares was great because you could kind of disappear and nobody would notice.
but we like me doing a lot of stuff here and just being in more sketches and then doing the streams and that kind of thing. That was the thing. I think that was kind of what got you out more. Was it loading times? Was it loading times first?
So I was just kind of hanging out sometimes in the background, and then sometimes I wouldn't show up, and then sometimes I would, and then I started showing up a little bit more often. I was in the background of like a couple of crap shots or whatever, and then there was a weekend where Graham wasn't around, but Alex was very prominent in all of the stuff, and he was doing loading times.
Right, he was shooting them,
and he couldn't shoot loading time and be in all of the stuff that he was scripted to be in. So he was trying to like have the camera set up in the corner, trying to get B-roll, but that's very difficult.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, well, I'm not doing anything. I can hold the camera in this corner so that you don't have to try to figure out what box it should sit on. And then you can have a human person being like, oh, things are in frame. And so I just kind of started doing that.
Would you like me to throw this paper tube at Beej?
Yes. Thank you.
If you hang around, you will be put to work.
Yeah. You just found a way to,
Yeah, so I was just filming loading times. And then because I knew I was doing it all the time, I knew all the things. So I would just be like, you, talk about the day now. Any thoughts, Cam?
I like turtles. So what we were doing was like, no, start again. Don't say so at the beginning. You're very, very vicious about it.
I love that. Yeah. So for a while there, Heather was in charge of filming loading time. It's sort of it's one of the things that just sort of happened. And yeah, don't say so. You can watch loading times from prior to Heather doing it. And the problem is that anytime there's two responses that you don't want when you're trying to film behind the scenes content. And I still encounter this from everybody here, including myself, is you want them to talk about something. And so you can't just say like, how's it going? Or what are you doing? Because what you want someone to say is, right now I'm doing this thing.
Right. You want them to sort of repeat the question or whatever. Yeah.
Because if you just say, well, how's it going? They'll just go, good.
Yep.
This is going okay. And it's like, no, I need you to explain to me what it is you're doing. So Heather would start with questions of like, explain to me what is going on, which is a much better start to get the person on camera to talk. But every time, without fail, just because of the way that we are and how language is, everyone would start by going, so I'm sitting here.
Stop that.
Yeah, and just every time,
and it's
every
okay.
time Heather would don't say so.
And like it doesn't matter that much. Like when you're just talking whatever, but when you intercut like 10 people all saying so,
and there was
it's so bad.
There's two ways people do it, and I've noticed this through a lot of the editing work. Graham will do this more than anyone else. He'll say so, pause, and then start a sentence. And you can cut that out.
Yes.
But a lot of people, what they actually do is they slur the word so into the beginning of the sentence, and you can't actually cut that out.
So I'm holding the
sounds
boom
weird.
today.
Yeah.
It's too fast.
Yeah, which is why it's just better to get someone to stop it. And I do remember one time being in the basement of Mark III and getting Kathleen to start a thing, and she said so, and I'm like, no, start over. And she'd do it again. I'm like, Kathleen, you're better than this. Come on. And she laughed so hard. I had this weird like rant that came out of nowhere from me that she started
broke the habit. It's hard. We've also now just ruined YouTube for everybody. So you go watch anything on
Or
YouTube
podcasts.
and watch the people who start, and they'll like Legal, who I love dearly, starts so many of his shows with this has been going on and whatever, and I'm like, that's one of those things where I'm like, that's just YouTuber talk now.
And the one Heather's talking about where I pause, I'm using so as like a brain reset.
Yep.
Right. It's like so. Can get the sentence together in your head, Graham. Then begin. Yeah.
So what I think is funny about this is I almost sewed there.
Yeah, I know. I
did.
saw that.
That was rough.
Yes, for the rest of this podcast, it's gonna be bad.
For being the business manager, I did not start full time before Heather did.
Yeah, I got full time before Beej.
Yeah, it's true.
Right. So
I know,
we're
right?
working. That was
That's an appropriate so.
That was an appropriate so. That was
given what you have just said.
Yes.
Now this other thing,
you two were both working for us in various capacities.
Yeah, lots of part-timey stuff.
Yeah. And we were at the point where we knew that we needed somebody doing basically what Beej is doing for us now. A business manager.
And I was approached to be like, can you handle our merch? Is how you initially approached me. Can you handle doing the merch?
So we knew
no memory of this.
So we knew that we needed that as a thing. But we were always basically like anybody who is savvy enough at business to be good in that job won't want to work for us because we, can't. And I remember you were working at the at UVic at the time, and you were in this weird sort of situation where you were like sort of. You were sort of on contract and hoping it was going to turn into a
I was on contract for a very, very long time, and it kept getting renewed. 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 3 months, 9 months. Yeah.
And UVic, obviously, it's a union shop, and there's a whole infrastructure.
2-to-1 pension plan.
Yeah,
it's great.
there's a whole infrastructure that is when you're sort of part of the thing. And I remember sort of thinking about that. It's like, I think that would be really helpful. I think you'd be really good at this, but it's like we can't offer him that.
No.
Like we can't offer him like that kind of advancement.
Yeah.
And that kind of sort of stability, I guess.
Yeah.
And so I think for a while it was just like, he's not going to be interested, so we won't even bother asking him.
Well, because you guys did offer the one time, I think soon after I'd lost my job, you'd offered the one time, because we were still at Delta at this point. You're like, do you want to work on the merchandise side of things? Like, we'll hire you on to come do that. And I said, what I was making, I'm trying to find a job again that I'm making at least as much. And this is, I told you what I was making, and I told them the pension plan and the health plan on top of that and everything else. And you're like, oh, my dude, I don't even make that.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Like now I know. Like my eyes just, the scales fell, right? Like it was just like, I get it. This is not, the business you are in is not a business where people make money. It's just
true.
You can make a living, but you don't make money. Like
very true.
So
I mean, some people have apparently.
There are other perks, but
Yeah.
not
You were
us.
working at UVic. I was working at
Seeing is believing.
Seeing is believing, which doesn't exist anymore.
Does it not?
No.
The whole company?
The reason I stopped working there is because they went bankrupt.
I didn't even realize the evil
Heather
has been
has a
defeated.
special
And
ability.
even
Jeremy also used to work at Seeing is Believing.
even better, they personally went bankrupt, which means the government wouldn't give me any money to cover for my lost wages.
Oh,
yeah.
So
not enough people believed.
Yeah.
Well, the prices that they were selling board games, I'm not really surprised. The EB Games next to us, because I guess that was in the Mayfair Mall location. They had a West Shore location for a bit before that shut down.
Yeah. EB was cheaper.
EB Games had some of the same board games as us for $20 cheaper.
Oofa doofa.
Like, and a good portion of the time, I would get people who would show up, and I'd be like, "There are other places in town I shouldn't tell you about," but
yeah. But
Good grief.
So I mean that had happened just as I was losing that job at UVic because of totally other reasons, which I've talked about in the past. And I think you got hired on full time because there was a point where you were doing the loading times and then the video editing.
I was doing loading times for a while. I video edited Running Start.
Casual, normal, or hard? Are you a casual?
I think in this instance we're pretty casual, yeah.
Yeah.
Just give me the fine, rich story of the first Templar.
I'm really into the narrative.
Yeah.
We only did like 12 or 13 episodes of that.
Yep.
Then I eventually ended up doing mail time, editing.
It's the time, and the time is mail time. No, the time is, well, it's almost 11:40 in the morning.
Yeah.
But it's mail time.
And I think like other little things here and there. And then at the time, Ian was sort of doing YouTube uploads because he was the one who started like the axe hand thing.
Yep.
But there was no, he has his own full-time job and YouTube uploads were behind a lot. So I started doing that. And thankfully we had Foxmar making spreadsheets of all of our things because otherwise I wouldn't have been able to track down what we were missing.
Mm-hmm.
So I was getting a handle on that. And then at some point I was just like, I need to work here full-time in order to catch up to anything and to be able to do everything.
And we were like, yes, you do.
And
you're correct.
And it was that idea of like, we can produce content all day, but if it doesn't get up onto, YouTube and various other places so people can see it, there's not really any point.
Mm-hmm. And we
had,
that's
an important part of the chain that was always kind of left to, Graham would do it or Kathleen would do it or whoever was sort of available and had some time, like, oh yeah, I'll try to do a bunch of those this weekend. And it was really falling through the cracks. Yeah. So that was a big improvement. And I'm sure the audience, saw the VODs go from like 3 months out.
Well, they used to get like dropped in batches too. So people would be like, where's the VOD for whatever? Because Twitch has it fall off after a while, right? Yep. And then just like this giant drop of like 20 or 40 VODs or something might happen one day and it would overwhelm everyone.
Yeah, whoops, sorry, here's the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, and so there was like at least 6 to 8 months worth of backlog to get through.
Mm-hmm.
And we were streaming very heavily, several different shows. And I was like, great, okay. We're going to put up 6 episodes a day because it lets us get ahead of what's being streamed. And that way there's at least a little bit of a breather. And now we fall behind like maybe by a week or two every so often if there's a big event or something else happens, like the Le Mans 24-hour streams take a little bit longer to get through. That kind of thing.
Or there's a PPR going up.
You know, Desert Bus happens or something. But we're never really more than like a couple weeks behind, and then they get caught up within a week anyway.
And there was just this idea that if there's one thing that Heather's really great at, it's making plans and then following through on those plans. And you should see the whiteboards in her office.
I've made use of that. It's not organized to perfection yet. I need some tape.
Yeah.
But
I'll get you some magnets too.
Oh yeah,
stuff.
I've been looking at magnets.
You're like, I don't know. We say like YouTube admin, but I mean, a big part of that is also like, hey, we've said that this video goes up on this day. Where is it? Graham, where's this? Where you told me that there's a video going up this day. I need that video. Right. And so that's been incredibly useful.
Yeah, I do like a lot of content managing work, assistant type stuff. So
your additional duties catalog, I think, has gotten a lot bigger than anybody else's.
I've got like I've got VOD uploads going on. I have a schedule. I have a calendar for an internal schedule for all of the YouTube channels. No, you can't know what they are because they're internal for your own safety. And ours.
Yep.
The Trello boards I'm constantly looking at. Generally, my day-to-day is like, okay, cool. Like today, this podcast, I've got to edit a Tap Concede for Monday. I have to go look at the VODs that got uploaded to make sure that they're okay. And I'll have to read up on video game news for a chill point on Sunday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The VOD uploading we are working at, it is much more automated now than it's ever been before, which is great.
Yeah.
But there does occasionally, like we were doing one the other day and like the computer crashed and whatever. And like, well, you got to go in there manually.
Mm-hmm. Or there's just so many technical problems and this happens every so often. There is a VOD that does not go onto YouTube for
content reasons
or technical reasons. I've had a couple. There's a group of people in the Lure Wiki channel who've been like updating all the pages recently. Like they've just been like super busy, and so I got like a thing from someone. They were like, "Oh, we noticed that this VOD is missing from 2020 or whatever," and I was like, "Huh, that sounds familiar. Let me go look at the spreadsheet." Yes, we decided not to put that up for reasons. So I let them know, and they're like, "Great, I will update the wiki so it reflects the thing."
Yay!
Shout outs to the wiki editors, by the way.
Yeah, we do definitely reference our own wiki
a
lot, and we need it.
It's super useful.
Really
it's incredibly useful. I was looking at it earlier when I was figuring out what some of your earliest sketches were.
I do a lot of file management because I'll go rename some of our files so we can find them later and make sure that they're backed up. I'm not the only person doing that. Graham, I know, does quite a bit of that, and I think we have a couple other people who clear out our things so we continue to have space to be able to continue to edit.
Especially with the advent of 4K video, we generate a lot of gigs of stuff.
Yeah.
The video where the stream crashed also didn't get recorded properly, so that's a video I will have to download from Twitch. I will have to stitch together and then make okay-ish. It'll be fine.
It's one of the and it's one of those things that it's something that I'm so glad that you are that your way of working takes us, because something that we historically have been very bad at is stuff like the YouTube things where it's sort of individually you're like, upload a video to YouTube takes like
3 minutes,
10 minutes, put in some text, it's all done, right? That's not the problem.
No,
it's doing it consistently for a long period of time
at volume,
going back and making sure that they actually did upload correctly, doing all this stuff. It's that consistency
in their playlists
of making sure that it actually happens. Having these sort of like, okay, I'll do 10 today or whatever is one thing, but sort of making sure that it actually happens over a long period of time is the thing that has been so very useful. So,
and you will see me complain on socials every so often, a lot, just in one clump, about YouTube, because YouTube likes to change things.
Yep.
They like to try things out. And if you put up a video once a month, every so often on one channel, you might not even notice that suddenly the button corners are round. But when we have 5 channels with all different backends, and YouTube likes to roll them out, I can tell the difference. I can see all the UI changes, and even better is when something is being tested. And this happened with YouTube chapters. Graham sent me a message one day where he's like, this video has like these chapter markers in it. How do we do that on our videos? And I was like, I don't see these chapter markers, Graham, because I couldn't see them.
Right, that was the weird thing. Some people couldn't even see them.
Yeah, I couldn't see them. It was a super old video too, so you were like, how did they do this? And I'm like, is he talking about the little yellow marks that denote ads? And he wasn't. He had to send me a picture of what his computer was showing him. And I was like, I don't know how that's happening. So I had to Google so much stuff, couldn't find a single thing. And then a week later, there was finally somebody who had written up a thing about how YouTube was trying out chapter markers and you could put them in your video by doing a specific thing in the description that you had to do in a specific way. Not everyone would be able to see them yet. And I was just like, thanks, YouTube. Because YouTube also has their own documentation, and every time I go look at it, none of it's dated, so I don't know how old any of it is. And a lot of the time, they don't update it either.
Yeah, it's all out of date no matter what.
And then you know, a year later, the whole chapter system might be completely trashed.
Oh, and they did that to...
They'll be like,
series?
chapters didn't work out so well.
Yeah, they did that to series, and I was so angry about
chapters
it.
have been great, but series was like, that was a great idea, and then they scuttered it because they were like...
Series was in beta, and they were like, oh, no one's using this, so we've decided to get rid of it. Like, we were just starting to use it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Or I still am super mad about how playlists work, because they used to have a if-then statement rules thing you could do with playlists, and I could just make playlists very easily, or I could...
Like making a smart playlist.
Could make a smart playlist, so things would not be forgotten to be added to that playlist. And I complained about that on Twitter, and like 6 different content creators who follow me were like, that's a thing you could do?
Yeah.
I would have so used that. Why am I finding out about it now? Like, why are they taking it away?
Yeah. I've been rewatching some older episodes of Commodore Hustle recently, and another fun, hilarious thing that YouTube has done is some of them, not very many of them, some of them, even ones that are only like 6 minutes, they've just added chapters. They've just decided that it needs chapters, and it's sort of like algorithmically trying to work out where the chapters should be and names the chapters based on words that are being said. And for an episode of Hustle, they are useless.
Great.
Yeah, the chapters, when they added that, so that's a thing you can it's a checkbox on each individual video. It's not a channel-wide thing, and they retroactively added it to everybody's stuff.
It's opt-out per video.
And we have too many videos for me to go open up every single video and opt out of them. So, yeah.
YouTube has problems.
Yeah.
They're trying. There's certain videos that works really great for.
Yeah.
But those are mostly information presentational videos with like essays or things that pop up on screen that are like, oh, we're going to talk about this thing now. And those make sense.
Yep. You don't have to fight with YouTube on a day-to-day basis.
No, it's great.
What are you, now that you are working as
Who do you fight with?
As the business manager, yeah.
Right. So, and the thing to that was Graham did eventually convince me to come work because I had been out of work for like practically a year at that point. Heather's salary carrying us very well, which was great. I'm like, oh, I could really stand to be a kept man. This is not so bad.
Wouldn't last long.
You know, and because I had the time, because I wasn't employed, I was doing the piecework at the moon base and was actually making reasonably good money there anyway. So I'm like, that's a good supplement to the house. And then when you said, hey, so again, coming back at you with this idea of doing merchandise management and doing all these other things that would be really helpful to us. And I said,
has your standards lowered enough now?
and I had said, I don't think, because I remember saying to you straight that I'm saying, I don't think what you need is somebody just to do merch. I think what you need is a business manager, somebody who can basically run all the office stuff that goes on, all this, paying the bills and making sure that the tax stuff is done properly. And
okay, well, if you know anybody with a business degree, then point him our way.
I was like, that's me.
Oh.
Beej, you'd be perfect for this.
Yes.
Do you know somebody who...
Wait a minute. You had a business degree this whole time and you didn't tell me?
No.
Was I think kind of the conversation that we had?
It was.
That's the first thing you learn when you get a business degree. So you have to keep it secret.
Yeah.
Never tell anyone that you have a business degree.
I have a bachelor's of commerce in management information systems with a marketing minor and practically an East Asian studies minor. I did enough Japanese courses in history and theater and language that I would almost qualify for a minor, but not quite. I was like short by like a couple.
You got to point that out though, because this is a nerdy group, and you
yeah.
need to give out your nerd creds so that they know you understand.
But I had to take economics. I had to take financial accounting and managerial accounting. I ended up taking a bunch of marketing courses. Which I never bought the textbooks for, which is awesome. It's just stuff. Well,
that's how you know he's a good business manager. I don't need to buy those books.
I just knew it like internally, like going in and listening to the things. I'm like,
them.
oh, I get these concepts,
So
and then I
they-
would pass the classes with 8s and 9s.
They should have marketed the textbooks better. Clearly,
Kinda, right? My prof's doing a shitty job of doing that. But anyway, the coming to work here because you said, here's the deal, and I'm like, I will think about that, and then I got a call like the very next day after I'd driven out to our landlords out in the middle of goddamn nowhere to give them a check for something. I got in my car and got a phone call from the Canadian Armed Forces saying, "Hey, so you applied for that job. We'd love to hire you for that job at the naval base." And I was like, that sounds like a really stable position, actually. That sounds like a job I could do for the next 30 years of my life. And I thought about it, and eventually I was like, I think I would have more fun waking up at whatever hour of the day I want to wake up, coming into work and doing all sorts of crazy shit.
The Army is known for wanting you to get up early.
Yeah.
That is true.
Beej is not a morning person.
No.
Never has been, and yet most of his jobs start at like 8 a.m.
It was the worst. I hated getting up to work all the time, and like you get like I wouldn't even put my contact lenses in. I just go to work like not being able to see anything. I just get on the bus and I just sit there, and then when I'd get off the bus, I'd walk in and I'd like go, get myself a drink and then put my contact lenses in my desk, and then I'd start work. So anyway, the original question was, what is my concern here? And it is by and large a lot of those things. It's primarily there's a lot of merchandising management that I coordinate with our fulfillment center with PMC Fulfillment. It's to help develop stuff that we're going to be doing as merchandise. It's to crack the whip on people to get me things to make the merchandise with. It's to think about more about the ad campaigns and stuff with that too. But then there's also the side of I coordinate payroll with our accountants. I make sure that I send them all the documentation they need in order to run. To account for all of our stuff properly as well.
Fulfill invoices people send us. You send invoices to other people for them to pay us.
Exactly. Basically, if you can think of somebody whose job it is to sit at a desk and push paper all day, big parts of all those jobs are what's folded into my job. And it's just fortunate that I don't have an 8-hour job of sending 8 hours worth of invoices to somebody all day. My job is varied. The most varied part of my job, which is a bit of a pain, I'm discovering, is I'm the contact at the info mailbox.
Right.
So if you email info@loadingreadyrun.com, I see it first. And what I have discovered running that mailbox is we are on so many lists.
Oh, yeah.
So many lists. And we get so much bullshit. And I will lose an hour or two a day to combing out. And I have labeling set up, and I have all sorts of things set up to help me like sort mail. And it's just like there's so much of that to do just to be able to crawl through to get to stuff that's like, hey, do we want to maybe do this? Like,
because some stuff's legitimate. Some stuff is like, hey, I am a developer or whatever of this tabletop or video game, and I am contacting Loading Ready Run directly, specifically because I wanted to contact Loading Ready Run. Can we get you to do like a sponsored stream of a game or something because we're doing a Kickstarter?
Here's a code.
And for every one of those, there's probably 50 we're on a mailing list, and it's like, hello, streamer, can you please play our game? Ask us for a code if you want to play our game.
Yes.
And it's like, not really. No. Sorry.
Or, I mean, even the ones where it's like, have you thought about promoting Raid Shadow Legends streamer? And it's like, oh, God. So I see a lot of that stuff. And
we've come close. Count your lucky stars that we haven't done a Raid Shadow Legends yet.
There's still...
They're offering us way less money now than they did. They came in initially at like $3,000.
Yeah.
For like a sponsored stream, but they also needed like to have like email signups and like a tracker in the
there's certain.
It was a bunch of nonsense.
Making 3 videos in order to, you have to make a video, and then you have a video with the thing. Then you had to have the tracker embedded in the video page, and then you had to make a follow-up video later that called attention to all the people who signed up thanks to you knowing the information from the tracker.
But now they want all of that still,
Yeah.
but for like $800.
Yeah.
It's like, it's worse now. Why would we do that?
Yeah. There's limits. There's definitely like lines of.
We're not saying we won't sell out, but our prices are.
You want us to do stuff that sounds difficult, and I'm really busy already. Nah, I'm good.
Yeah.
It's funny that it's like Raid Shadow Legends. We would never, we couldn't lend our name to that kind of thing. When in actual fact, Raid Shadow Legends. I actually don't know if it's any good as a game.
Yeah.
I don't think it is.
Yeah.
But the main thing is that it would be so much work.
Yeah.
Yeah. By and large. And I mean that like saying so then what's part of your job, and it's like I see that because there's the management team aspect of let's talk about plans to do like actually having a like being a voice among the six of us.
Oh, that's right. I get to do that too.
Exactly. And the six of us in the organization, we talk a lot about work at home, you and I.
We try not to. We try to put down some like anime only time.
Yeah. And but to be a part of the group that's kind of
anime isn't necessarily not worked on.
Yeah.
It is now.
What is the team like? What do we want to do with the company writ large? Like, what's the big plans that are coming up? Do we also? And I've said no to things before, where it's like, despite being an improv guy, it's like I say no to this. You have heard me say so many times to you, Graham, where I'm like, I don't think we should do this. Also, I'm not in charge of the company. Remember that.
Yeah.
But those two sentences come out of my mouth a lot, where it's like, this is how I feel. I recognize I don't run this company.
And the thing is, I super value that. Yeah. And most of the time, I think reactions to that has been like, yeah, no, you're probably right, though. A couple times it is like, all right, I respect that. Thank you. We're doing it. Yeah. But that's rare, honestly.
Yeah.
Like if I don't think generally speaking that we've been interested in doing things that people are like, I don't know about this.
Yeah, when you start to feel iffy about a thing, especially when enough people feel iffy about a thing, it starts to feel like maybe this is not the direction.
Or it's not even, we shouldn't do that. Yeah. It's like, just so you know, these are the implications of what you're saying.
I think almost every meeting we've ever had, I've been like, okay, I just want to be certain this affects 5 different things over here. Are we aware of that?
Yeah.
Do we remember to go past blue skying and think about a little bit about reality a little?
Not saying we shouldn't do this project, but if we do,
maybe we can't do it right now.
Yeah.
Maybe.
That stuff, whenever you specifically, Heather, when you bring that stuff up, it's super useful.
Yeah.
Look, it's much more fun thinking of the ideas.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And I mean, like, there's also, like, because there's a business and legal implications of stuff that we might do too. And to be able to say, it's like, well, if we're going to do X, then we need to do Y. I'm the one who signs most contracts. Not because it's like, well, it has to go through me, but also because it's like, well, if you have the time to read a contract, go read a contract and, find things in it that you think might be, because if I didn't negotiate a thing, then it's easier for me to be like, so we're only getting this, or we're doing these things, but they're asking for this. Is that right? Like trying to follow up and be like, did we say we'd be doing this too? And then sometimes it's like, actually, we didn't say we'd be doing that too. We have to clarify that, or we have to talk back to the person and be like, is this just boilerplate, or are you actually going to follow through on this clause that sounds a little weird, Mm-hmm. And, sometimes it's just having that. That's just the one part of the job that I have, is the business manager part of my whole job, because the other part of my job is stream stuff, act in stuff, hold the booms sometimes, like less these days it seems. And
the more on camera stuff you get to see.
Yeah, which is when I was talking with Joe about this, because I sat down with Joe Trollo, who is like a very highly paid manager in his own in this company he works for, and he said, do you want to do a run through of like, let's talk about what your job is like. Let's talk about what your employment goals are like, your career goals. And I'm like, yeah, sure. And so we did that, and it became the questions he asked were like really illuminating. And they're things that I understood kind of implicitly, but until I said them out loud, then it became a little more concrete about what do you actually like about the jobs that you do, or what are the things that you value. And I'm like, man, actually I really do value variety in my job. Mm-hmm. And I get an opportunity to do that. And it sometimes sucks because I might come into work being like, okay, plan today is to do X, Y, and Z. And then I get here and I realize, oh, A, B, and C have to be done today. And it's a completely different thing that I have to do. And I had businessy shit I had to do, but actually there's acting stuff that has to get done, or else we can't actually do the rest of the project. And like, oh God,
there's
okay.
so much to juggle.
Yeah. Variety is
So-
great, but you really have to keep track of a schedule and your priority and your to-do lists, and because otherwise stuff falls down.
Yeah.
Speaking of keeping track of a schedule, I swear that I blinked and we skipped forward like half an hour in the recording. So I think we should probably move towards wrapping up.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, the past couple times we've sort of been asking folks, like, oh, and what are you up to now, or sort of thing. But that is what you're up to now.
Yeah.
You're still you're sort of here. But I mean, Heather, you also home stream.
Yeah, I stream at twitch.tv/LunarJade. I actually just started putting up my own VODs on youtube.com/LunarJade as well.
Heck yeah.
Which
you need
seems
your own
like I should
Heather
just be
to
able
do.
to do, but like when you do it for work, it actually gets harder to do it at home.
We could probably get Axehand working on your stuff at home, maybe.
I don't really need it. I just need to be on top of it.
Fair.
Yeah.
But yeah, I stream at home. I have a lot of fun doing that.
Sweet. When Beej is off work, that's Beej time.
Yeah, it is. It really is.
Beej comes home and he's still working. I'm not sure what your office hours are. It's very
Neither
hard
am
to
I.
tell.
No.
Which I would love to know, but here we are.
Yeah, it's. Now that I have my
now
desk,
you have an office.
Yeah, I have an office and I have a desk and everything's kind of getting sorted out more. And I noticed that once that started happening, because it fell off from especially due to the pandemic. Working at Moonbase Mark V, it was just kind of like we're not coming in all the time to do stuff. So try to get time at home to work and to do things. And so when we were starting to come back into work, my office sucked at Mark V. It really did. It was just too much stuff crammed in one room. And now there's still a lot of stuff crammed in that room, but it's mine. Like it's all my problem. And that's just now, that's how that's going to be. And I'm finding that I'm like, I like walking into work now, and I like coming in and being a part of the thing and doing, coming in and working till like 8 o'clock at night. Cause I, again, wake up at like noon. Right. So that kind of idea. But it's like,
now that you have an office, though, now you can post hours in case
Yeah.
any of your 100-level students are worried about getting all their credits this semester.
Exactly.
Yeah, if we put like little bulletin boards outside of our doors, and put like a little office posting there if you want.
Yeah.
Heather wants to have a thing that has everybody has a marker on a board that's like when you're in the office, you slide in to be like, I'm here today. And then when
I've
you're
seen
actually
those.
going home for the day, you mark and you say, I'm not. So if you're like, I'm out at lunch, you just slide it over to the side that says you're at lunch.
Look, the only reason I want that is because this moon base is large.
Yeah.
And there are ways to walk around people when you go look for rooms, and I'm afraid of accidentally locking someone with the alarm on.
Yeah, someone's going to end up sleeping on the sectional here in Studio C with the lights off, and we're going to have no idea. And we're going to set the alarm and leave, and they're going to be just freaking out when they wake up.
I look forward to that probably being me. All right. Actually, more likely Kathleen, now that I think about it. Anyway, yeah, that was it. That was a fun chat.
That was.
Thanks,
Absolutely.
everybody. Yeah. All right. That's going to do it for this time. We have not really formalized a good sign off for this. Patreon.com/LoadingReadyRun. I don't think we've ever said that before in any of these recordings.
Oh, well, you should definitely add it now.
There's probably a lot more I want you to say too.
Store.loadingreadyrun.com. If you'll probably be watching this on YouTube, so you can become a YouTube member on this channel because this will be the main channel. You can also leave super thanks. Am I getting all this?
Yeah.
Yeah. Our PayPal is paypal.me/loadingreadyrun if you just want to give us money directly. There you go.
Yeah, I never think about that one. That's a good one, though.
Yeah, I just thought of it now.
Absolutely.
There we go. All right. Thanks, everybody. I have been Graham with Paul. James is on tech. Joined this time by Heather.
Hello.
And Beej.
Hello.
And we will talk to you all in the next episode. Bye.